The day left a residue on you that no one else seemed to carry. Sensitivity research has a name for that residue now, and a quiet system built into your nights, made to wash it away. The part rarely said aloud, the nervous system that tires first, is the same one that noticed what everyone else walked past without a flicker. Welcome to Psychology for Sleep. Tonight follows that weight down to where it actually lives. In the blood. In the thin spaces between your cells. And to the system that clears it while you rest. You're where the day's signals have stopped arriving. Let the quiet hold what felt too heavy to carry. Let's follow the weight to its source. You know the feeling of leaving a room and realizing you absorbed something no one handed you on purpose. A mood in a coworker's voice. A tension between strangers. A sadness behind a smile. For a long time you may have wondered why an ordinary day could leave you wrung out. Researchers who study sensory processing sensitivity have begun to answer that. And the answer starts in the body, not in your character. Your nervous system was taking in more of that room than most do, and processing it more deeply. What felt like fragility was a system reading the world at higher resolution. The tiredness was never proof that something was wrong with you. It was the quiet cost of noticing. There is a particular exhaustion that arrives without a clear cause, the kind you cannot point to and explain. Science calls the underlying trait sensory processing sensitivity, present in roughly 15 to 20% of people and seen across many species. People with this trait take in subtle information, process it more thoroughly, and feel emotional input more vividly. The point is not that you feel too much. It is that you feel accurately. And accuracy has a price measured in energy. By the end of a day, the bill comes due. What you carried home was real work, even though no one watched you do it. Perhaps you have been told you are too sensitive, as though sensitivity were a dial you could turn down. What we now understand is that the trait sits in the architecture of the brain itself, not in a habit you could break. Brain imaging shows that sensitive individuals have stronger activation in regions tied to awareness, empathy, and bodily feeling. These are not optional circuits. They run whether or not you ask them to. So when someone suggests you stop noticing, they are asking for something your biology cannot deliver. The relief you are looking for was never going to come from feeling less. It comes from understanding what the feeling costs and how the body pays it back. Think of a time, a small comment, lodged in you for hours, long after the person who said it had forgotten it. To them, it weighed nothing. To you, it weighed something measurable. Depth of processing is the term researchers use. The first and most defining feature of a sensitive nervous system. Your brain does not let information pass through quickly. It turns each piece over, connects it to memory, checks it against meaning. This is why your insights run deep, and why the same input that slides off another person settles into you and stays. The weight you feel is the depth working. It is the mechanism doing exactly what it does. You may have noticed that bright lights, loud rooms, and crowds leave you frayed in a way that puzzles the people beside you. Overstimulation is the second feature of high sensitivity. Not a preference, but a physiological threshold. Because your system processes incoming details so thoroughly, it reaches capacity sooner. The same concert, the same open office, the same long dinner asks more of your nervous system than of the systems around you. When you reach that ceiling, the tiredness is not laziness. It is a brain that has done more accounting per minute than most are asked to do. Stepping away is not weakness. It is the honest response to a system that has taken in enough. Consider the way another person's grief can sit in your chest as though it were your own, even when you barely know them. Emotional reactivity and empathy form the third feature of sensitivity, and brain imaging gives it a home, the insula and the mirror-related regions, which help you feel what others feel. Respond more strongly in sensitive people. You are not imagining the borrowed sorrow. Your brain is generating a genuine echo of it. This is why you can read a room before anyone speaks, and why a sad film can stay with you for days. The empathy that exhausts you is the same empathy that makes people trust you with what they cannot say. There are moments when you sense something is off before a word confirms it. A shift in the air that others miss. Sensitivity to subtleties is the fourth feature. The quiet talent for catching small signals, a change in posture, a faint hesitation, a detail out of place. Your nervous system flags these the way a fine instrument registers a tremor too small for a cruder gauge. This is the gift that makes sensitive people perceptive friends and attentive partners. It is also a system that never fully stands down, because the signals never fully stop arriving. The watchfulness that protects others is what leaves you tired. Tonight, slowly, the instrument is allowed to set itself down. You have probably had days that looked light from the outside but felt enormous from within. Nothing major happened, yet you came home depleted. The reason lives in a process researchers call allostasis, the way your body works to stay stable while everything around it changes. Each small adaptation to a stressor costs a little energy and a few chemical messengers. For such a system, one that registers more stresses, the adjustments add up faster. By evening, you have made thousands of tiny corrections no one noticed. The fatigue is not a story you tell yourself. It is a ledger, and the entries are real. What you feel as heaviness is the weight of a system that steadied you all day. Think of the body as something that does not simply react to stress, but predicts it, bracing before the wave arrives. That prediction is allostasis at work. Usually a beautiful thing, keeping your heart, hormones, and blood chemistry tuned to the moment. The trouble begins only when the bracing never gets to stop. For a sensitive system reading subtle threats and sorrows all day, it rarely stops on its own. The system stays a half step ahead of a world that keeps moving. This is why rest can feel out of reach even when you are still. Your body is still predicting. Sleep is where that prediction finally gets permission to rest, and the bracing can release. And this is only the beginning of why a sensitive day leaves such a deep mark. When the body's constant adjusting goes on too long without recovery, it shifts from a help into a burden. A state researchers named allostatic load. This is the wear that accumulates when the stress response stays switched on. It is not just a feeling. It can be measured in stress hormones, in blood pressure, in markers of inflammation. For sensitive people, the load builds quietly because the system carries it without complaint. The exhaustion you feel at night is the first honest signal of that load. Your body is not betraying you. It is telling you the truth about the day. You may have felt your heart racing over something that, in hindsight, did not deserve the alarm. That is the stress response, centered on a chain of signals running from the brain to a pair of small glands above your kidneys. When your system perceives a demand, the brain tells those glands to release cortisol and adrenaline, chemicals that sharpen attention and ready the body to act. In short bursts. This is exactly what you want. But a sensitive brain perceives demand more often. So the chain fires more often. The racing heart was not irrational. It was a finely tuned alarm doing its job. The work now is to give the chemistry it released somewhere safe to settle. Recall how, after a stressful stretch, your body stays keyed up long after the cause has passed. Cortisol is the reason. It is the body's primary stress hormone, and it lingers in the bloodstream far longer than the moment that triggered it. Cortisol raises blood sugar, shifts immune activity, and keeps the brain primed for vigilance. In a balanced day, it rises and falls in a clean rhythm. But when stresses keep arriving, it stays elevated, and the system never fully resets. For you, the arrivals come more often, so the resets come less. The lingering tension you feel at night is chemistry that has not yet cleared. It is waiting for the part of the day built to wash it out. There is a familiar paradox in being most exhausted at the very hours you most want calm. Your stress chemistry follows a daily clock, a circadian rhythm. Cortisol is meant to peak in the early morning, giving you the lift to wake, then fall to its lowest point near the middle of the night. That descent is what lets the body soften towards sleep. But a day spent absorbing more than your share can keep cortisol higher than the clock intends. So the evening drop arrives late, or only part way. This is why a tired mind can still feel wired. The clock is trying to bring you down. The day's residue is holding you up. Sleep is where the clock, at last, gets to win. You may have wondered why the same workload flattens you while it barely touches someone else. Part of the answer is that sensitive nervous systems run a higher baseline of physiological arousal. Studies measuring heart rate, skin response, and stress markers find that highly sensitive people often react more strongly to the same stimulus. Where another person registers a 5, your system may register an 8, not because you are dramatizing it, but because your instrument reads at a finer scale. Over a full day, those higher readings accumulate into a heavier total. This is the quiet math behind your tiredness. You were not weaker. You were carrying a larger sum, calculated honestly by a body that takes the world fully into account. Think of the way certain memories flood back, complete with their original feeling, as fresh as the day they formed. For sensitive people, this vividness is part of the same deep processing that colors everything. The brain encodes emotionally charged experiences more strongly, and a system tuned to feel intensely encodes them deeper still. This is why your joys can be luminous and your wounds slow to fade. It is also why the residue of a hard day does not simply evaporate. The feeling is stored, waiting to be processed rather than forgotten. This is not a curse of memory. It is the cost of a life felt in high definition, and the processing it requires has a place to happen. That place is sleep. You have likely had nights when your mind would not stop circling the same few thoughts, replaying a conversation long after it mattered. Researchers link this to a network that becomes active when you are not focused on a task, sometimes called the default mode network. In a calm mind, it wanders gently. In a tired, overloaded mind, it can lock on to worry and loop. For a sensitive person carrying a full day of unprocessed feeling, the loops have more material to work with. The circling is not weakness or a failure of willpower. It is an overloaded system trying to file what it never had a quiet moment to file. The looping eases not by force, but by giving the brain the conditions it has been waiting for. Consider how a single unkind remark can outweigh 10 kind ones, lingering far past its size. Your brain carries an ancient tilt toward the negative, a bias that once kept your ancestors alive by making threats more memorable than comforts. In a sensitive system, that tilt is amplified, because the system feels both the threat and the meaning behind it more strongly. This is why criticism can sit so heavily, and why reassurance seems to slip away too soon. The imbalance is not proof that you dwell on the bad. It is a survival circuit running a little hot. Knowing this does not make the remark weigh less tonight, but it places the weight where it belongs, in old biology rather than in some failing of yours. You may notice that you feel other people's expectations as a physical pressure, a weight across the shoulders or chest. Sensitive nervous systems are unusually attuned to social cues, and social stress activates the very same chemistry as physical stress. A disappointed glance, an unanswered message, a sense of having let someone down can trigger cortisol as surely as a near miss in traffic. Your body does not draw a sharp line between a threat to the body and a threat to belonging. To a creature built for connection, they were once nearly the same. So the heaviness you carry from a hard interaction is not imagined. It is a real chemical event. And like every such event, it has a window. Later, when it can be cleared. There are evenings when you feel almost too tired to sleep. A strange, wired exhaustion that defies sense. This often comes from a body that has been running its stress system so long it has trouble shifting gears. The nervous system has two broad modes, one that mobilizes you and one that restores you. The restoring mode, carried largely by the vagus nerve, lets your heart slow, your digestion resume, your muscles release. After a long, sensitive day, the mobilizing mode can stay dominant well past its usefulness. The wired feeling is that lag, the gears not yet shifting. It does not mean sleep will not come. It means the body needs a little time and safety to make the switch. And lying here quietly, you are giving it both. Think of how deeply a peaceful environment can restore you, far more than it seems to restore others. This is the other side of high sensitivity, the part that rarely gets named. A system that registers harshness intensely also registers gentleness intensely. Soft light, a kind voice, the quiet of a safe room. These reach you at the same higher resolution that the day's burdens did. Researchers call this sensitivity to positive environments. And it means your capacity for recovery is as deep as your capacity for depletion. The trait that made the day costly makes this hour healing. You are not only built to absorb the heavy, You are built to absorb the calm. And right now, your system is taking it in at full depth. You have felt, perhaps, that you carry the emotional temperature of the people you love, warming and cooling with them. This is co-regulation, the way nervous systems tune to one another, and sensitive systems are especially fluent in it. When someone near you is calm, your body borrows their calm. When they are distressed, your body borrows that too. It is part of why you are a steadying presence, and part of why crowded or tense rooms drain you so completely. You are doing the invisible labor of feeling alongside everyone at once. No one assigns this work or thanks you for it, but your body keeps the account. Tonight, there is no one to tune to but yourself. For these hours, your system gets to regulate only its own. Recall the relief of finally being alone after a long social day. The way solitude can feel like oxygen. For a sensitive person, this is not antisocial. It is the recovery your nervous system has been quietly asking for. Solitude lowers the incoming stream of signals to a level your system can fully process, letting the backlog clear. It is the difference between a desk piled with unopened mail and a desk where you can finally sit and sort. The longing for quiet is not a flaw in how you love people. It is the arithmetic of a system that took in a great deal and now needs space to put it down. This hour is that space, deepened, where even the sorting can slow and soften towards sleep. You may have sensed that your body keeps a memory the mind cannot reach. That old stress can live in the muscles, the gut, the breath. Science increasingly agrees. Chronic activation of the stress response leaves traces in muscle tension, in the rhythm of the heart, in the steady hum of low-grade inflammation. For sensitive people who run the system more often, these traces gather sooner. The tightness in your jaw, the shallow breath, the unease with no name. These are the body holding what the day handed it. This is not weakness stored in the flesh. It is honesty stored there. And the body that holds it also knows how to release it, given the one condition it cannot manufacture on demand. That condition is sleep. Think of a sponge that has soaked up all it can, heavy and saturated, unable to take in another drop. This is close to what a sensitive nervous system reaches by the end of a demanding day. Its capacity to process is not infinite, and when the load exceeds the rate of clearing, the system saturates. You feel it as the sudden inability to take in one more request, one more sound, one more feeling. This is not rudeness or coldness. It is a full sponge. The only thing that empties it is the slow, patient process of wringing out. And that is not something you can will. It happens to you, for you, when the conditions are right. Each night, those conditions arrive. What all of this tells us is something larger than a single tired day. It tells us the heaviness you carry has a mechanism, a chemistry, a physical reality that does not depend on anyone else believing in it. The exhaustion was never a character flaw or a failure of resilience. It was the measurable cost of a nervous system that takes the world in more fully, gathering in the blood and brain as a real, traceable load. But a question now opens beneath all of this. If the load is physical, then so must be its clearing. Something in the body has to carry the waste away. The question is, what, and where, and how it works while you sleep. That is where the next arc begins. Right now, the nervous system that spent the day reading every room is doing something it does each time the world finally quiets. It is beginning to clear, not shutting down, clearing, letting go of what it gripped to stay steady, loosening the chemistry it held to keep you upright. You don't have to direct any of it. The body knows this work better than you do. What you haven't heard yet is where that clearing actually happens. The literal place inside you where the residue of a heavy day gets carried off into the dark and washed away. That is where the next stretch begins. Let's follow it down. You may have heard that sleep is when the body repairs itself. The truth is more specific than that comfort suggests. In the past decade, researchers found that the brain has its own dedicated cleaning system, one that runs mainly during sleep. They named it the glymphatic system because it works alongside the glial cells and acts like the body's lymphatic drainage. While you rest, fluid flows through the brain in channels that open wider than they ever do during waking. Carrying away the waste, a day of thinking and feeling leaves behind. The cleaning you sensed was real. It has a name now, and a time. That time is the hours you are entering. Think of a city that cannot run its street cleaners during the busy day and waits for the quiet of night. Your brain works much the same way. During waking hours, brain cells are densely packed and active, leaving little room for fluid to circulate. But during deep sleep, the cells shrink slightly, and the space between them expands. Research in mice first found this gap can widen by around 60%. That widening lets cleansing fluid sweep through channels too narrow while you were awake. The brain was waiting, like the city, for the quiet. The quiet is arriving now, and the streets inside you are beginning to clear. Recall the difference between a night of true rest and a night of broken sleep. That difference is not only about feeling rested, it is about cleaning that did, or did not, get done. The glymphatic system does most of its work during the deep, slow stages of sleep, early in the night. When those stages are protected, the brain clears more of its waste. When they are fragmented, the cleaning is cut short, and the residue lingers into morning as fog. The clarity you felt after good sleep was your brain, genuinely washed, tonight. By staying still and letting yourself sink, you are protecting the very stages that do the clearing. You have surely noticed that thinking hard for hours leaves a kind of mental sludge. There is a physical reason. As brain cells work, they produce metabolic byproducts. The natural exhaust of being active, one of the most studied, is a protein fragment called amyloid beta. It builds up during waking and is cleared during sleep by the glymphatic flow, a process first mapped in animals. And when sleep is short, more of it remains. The heaviness behind your eyes is not imaginary fatigue. It is, in part, the residue of your own thinking, waiting for the night shift to carry it out. For a sensitive mind that processes more deeply, the exhaust runs higher, so the cleaning matters more. Consider how a clear stream carries away what would otherwise settle and stagnate. Inside your skull, Cerebrospinal fluid plays that role. It cushions the brain and, during sleep, becomes the current that flushes waste away. As you fall into deep sleep, this fluid pulses through the brain in slow, rhythmic waves, moving into the tissue and drawing back out, carrying debris with it. Brain imaging studies in people have actually watched these waves wash in and out in time with the slow rhythms of deep sleep. The stream you imagined is real, and it runs inside you every night. It cannot flow this way while you are busy. It needs the stillness you are settling into now. Some problems seem impossible at midnight, then look almost ordinary by the time morning comes. Part of the answer is chemical. During deep sleep, the glymphatic system clears not only metabolic waste, but some of the chemistry that accumulates with stress. The brain you wake with is, in a real sense, cleaner than the one you fell asleep with. Its circuits less cluttered, its signals less noisy. This is why morning so often brings perspective that midnight could not. The problem did not change. The instrument reading it did. For a sensitive system that gathers more residue, this overnight cleaning makes a larger difference. The relief you felt at dawn was a brain carrying the clutter away. Think of how a single substance can decide whether the cleaning begins at all. That substance is norepinephrine, a chemical cousin of adrenaline that keeps you alert during the day. It is high when you are awake and watchful, and it has to fall for the brain's cleaning to switch on. As it drops in deep sleep, animal studies show the spaces between brain cells open and the glymphatic flow accelerates. For a sensitive system that runs vigilance higher and longer, norepinephrine can be slow to fall. This is part of why winding down takes you longer, but fall it does, given safety and stillness. As it lowers to night, it is unlocking the very system that will clean your mind. Recall the deep, almost bottomless sleep that sometimes comes after an emotionally heavy day. That insistence may be the brain protecting its own maintenance. After days of high demand, the pressure for deep, slow-wave sleep increases, as though the system knows it has more clearing to do. Researchers find that slow-wave sleep is when glymphatic flow is strongest, and the brain prioritizes it when the load has been high. So the heaviness that pulls you down on your hardest nights is not just tiredness. It can be the body steering you toward the stage where the most cleaning happens. Your exhaustion on those nights is wise. Tonight, if that heaviness comes, you can trust it. You have likely felt the strange way grief or stress can seem lighter after sleep, even when nothing has changed. This is not denial. Sleep changes the chemical and physical state of the brain that holds the feeling. The glymphatic clearing reduces the metabolic burden. The stress chemistry settles toward baseline, and the circuits inflamed by a long day cool. The feeling may remain, but the body carrying it is no longer in the same overloaded state. This is why the same sorrow can feel unbearable at midnight and merely heavy at noon. You did not fail to grieve by sleeping. You let the body do its repair so you could carry the feeling without running on empty. Consider how a sensitive person can be flattened by a day that others would shrug off. The glymphatic perspective offers a quiet reading of it. If your nervous system takes in and processes more, it also produces more of the residue that sleep must clear. You begin each night with a fuller load. This is not a defect. It is simply more material for the night shift to handle. Protected sleep is not a luxury for you. It is the counterweight to a system that gives more and gathers more. The unfairness eases when you see it whole. You are never carrying the same load as everyone else. And a system that rests fully can clear what it gathers. Think of the difference between rinsing a cloth once and wringing it slowly until the water runs clear. Light sleep is the rinse. Deep sleep is the wringing. The brain cycles through stages across the night. And only in the deepest stages does the glymphatic flow reach full strength. This is why sleep quality matters as much as quantity, and why a long, shallow night can leave you as foggy as a short one, for your system, with its fuller load. Those deep stages are where the real clearing happens. You cannot force yourself into them, but you can stop standing in their way. By releasing the vigilance and trusting the dark, you let the cycle carry you down. Physical exhaustion and emotional exhaustion can feel almost identical. Two names for a single weight. There is a reason they blur together. Both physical exertion and emotional processing draw on the same finite resources the energy stores. The stress chemistry. The brain regions that monitor effort. To the body, a day of intense feeling is a day of intense work, even if you never left your chair. For a sensitive person, this is the quiet explanation for tiredness that looks unearned. You did exert yourself. The exertion was internal, invisible, and entirely real. And like physical exertion, it is repaid by the same night of cleaning and restoration the body gives to all effort at once. Recall how a worry can shrink overnight from a towering thing to a manageable one. Beyond the glymphatic cleaning, sleep quiets the brain's alarm center, the amygdala, which runs hot when you are stressed and exhausted. During healthy sleep, the connection between the alarm center and the calm, reasoning parts of the brain is restored. By morning, the alarm is no longer firing without a break. This is why the same worry feels enormous to a sleep-deprived mind and ordinary to a rested one. The worry did not change size. The brain regained its ability to hold it in proportion. For a sensitive system whose alarm fires readily, this rebalancing is one of sleep's most generous gifts. After enough rest, your capacity for patience and kindness quietly returns. That well is real, and sleep is how it refills. The self-control, the empathy, the steadiness you offer the world all depend on a brain whose resources have been restored. When sleep is short, those resources run thin, and even a gentle person can feel frayed and reactive. This is not a moral failing. It is a depleted system. For a sensitive person who spends so much feeling alongside others, the nightly refill is what makes the giving sustainable. The patience you want tomorrow is not a matter of trying harder. It is being assembled tonight, in the dark, while you rest. You have surely felt the contrast between facing a hard day after good sleep and after a bad one. That contrast is the load, cleared or uncleared, made visible in your life. Everything we have followed so far, the deep processing, the higher arousal, the gathering residue, the nightly cleaning, points toward a single thread. The heaviness of a sensitive life is not a fixed sentence. It rises across the day and falls across the night. in a rhythm as physical as the tide. But there is a harder part the science is only beginning to map, about what happens when the falling cannot keep pace with the rising. That is where the next stretch carries us, into deeper water. There's a softness settling over you now that wasn't here an hour ago. Take one slow breath and notice how the day's signals are arriving more faintly, as if from farther away. Your nervous system is doing exactly what it was built to do tonight. We'll keep moving through this together, gently, with nothing left to carry. You may have lived through a stretch so relentless that the tiredness stopped lifting, even after a full night's sleep. This is the heart of allostatic load, the point where the rising outpaces the falling. When stressors arrive faster than the body can clear their chemistry, the load does not reset overnight. It carries forward, a little more each day, until the baseline shifts upward. For a sensitive system that gathers residue quickly, this happens sooner than anyone would guess. The exhaustion that does not lift is the body telling you the ledger has run ahead of the clearing. It is not weakness, and not permanent. It is a signal, asking for more of exactly what you are doing now. Think of how chronic stress seems to age people, not metaphorically, but visibly. The science behind that runs deep. Sustained allostatic load has been linked to higher blood pressure, disrupted blood sugar, weakened immunity, and changes at the level of the cells that mark biological aging. The body kept in constant adjusting wears in measurable ways. This is why rest is not indulgence, but maintenance. The difference between a system that lasts and one that frays. For a system that runs the adjusting more often, protecting rest is the literal counterforce to the wear. Each night of true clearing is a withdrawal from the load and a deposit into the years ahead. Tonight is one of those deposits. Recall a season when your sleep itself began to fray under stress. This is one of the cruelest turns in the cycle, and it is well documented. High allostatic load and elevated cortisol can interfere with the deep stages of sleep, the same stages that do the most clearing. So the load disrupts the rest that would relieve the load. It is a loop that can feel inescapable from the inside, but loops can be entered from either side. Tonight, by lowering the demands and offering the body stillness, you are working on the side you can reach. You only have to give this one night a chance. How the same stress lands on you depends partly on whether you feel in control of it. Researchers find this too. The stress response is gentler when a demand feels predictable and within your power, and harsher when it feels uncertain or beyond your control. For a sensitive system attuned to every shifting variable, the world offers much uncertainty to absorb. This is part of why your load runs high even in an ordinary life. But one domain is reliably yours. This hour, this stillness, this choice to rest is entirely within your control. You cannot command the day to be gentler. You can offer your body the one safe, predictable thing it has been waiting for. Think of how a body braced for impact cannot also be a body at rest. This is the simple physiology beneath so much sleeplessness. The branch of the nervous system that restores you and the branch that mobilizes you cannot run at full strength at once. Healing requires the restorative branch to take the lead. And that handover is what a long day of vigilance delays. For you, the mobilizing branch is slow to yield, because watchfulness feels like safety But watchfulness is not what keeps you safe tonight. The room is quiet. The day is done, and the signals have stopped arriving. As you let that truth settle in, the branch that heals can finally step forward. You have perhaps felt that being told to relax only made you tenser. The body confirms this. The restorative state cannot be forced by willpower, because willpower is itself a form of effort, and effort keeps the mobilizing system engaged. The shift toward rest comes not from trying, but from feeling safe enough to stop trying. This is gentle news for a sensitive system that has spent a lifetime managing its own intensity. Tonight, there is nothing to manage. The work of the day is complete. Whether or not it was finished perfectly, you are not being asked to relax on command. You are being invited to notice that the conditions for rest are already here. Recall the particular comfort of a weighted blanket, a warm bath, a held hand. These are not mere preferences. They are signals the nervous system reads as safety. And safety is the gateway to the restorative state. Gentle, predictable physical input lowers vigilance and helps the calming branch take over. For a sensitive person who reads every signal deeply, these cues can be especially powerful, working at the same high resolution that the day's stressors did. The depth that made the world heavy can be used. Now, to make the night healing, the same instrument that registered the harsh so vividly is registering the gentle just as vividly. Here, where you rest, let it read the safety. Is your sensitivity something to be cured? The science gives a clear answer. Sensitivity is not a disorder. It is a normal, heritable trait that has persisted across species precisely because it offers advantages: careful observation, deep processing, attentive care. The exhaustion is not the trait failing. It is the trait operating in a world that rarely makes room for it. The work is not to become less sensitive, but to honor what it costs and give it the recovery it requires. You were never broken. You were built for depth, and depth, fully rested, is one of the most valuable things a person can offer. Tonight is the rest a remarkable system has earned. Think of how differently you treat a friend's exhaustion than your own. For sensitive people who feel others so vividly, this gap can be wide. You may offer endless patience to everyone but the one carrying your own nervous system. Yet the body does not respond to harshness, even self-directed harshness, with healing. It responds with more of the very stress chemistry that built the load. Self-judgment, in the language of the body, is just another stressor. This is not a call to do more. It is a quiet invitation to let the gentleness you give so freely turn, for these hours, toward yourself. That care is the condition under which the clearing works best. So where does the night leave us? Halfway down into the dark. The question we began with, what happens in the blood and brain of a sensitive person at the edge of exhaustion, has begun to answer itself. The load is physical. The clearing is physical. The two run in a rhythm, rising and falling. And the falling depends on the deep, safe rest you can only allow, never force. But here the night turns towards something subtler than chemistry. The load is not only waste to be flushed, it is also meaning. How a sensitive system decides what was a threat and what was simply the world arriving. The next stretch follows why a sensitive system carries so much. What just opened? The question of whether the sensitivity that exhausts you is the same thing that makes the world trust you with its quiet signals is not only a question of chemistry. You may be holding both sides of it right now. The cost and the worth, not resolved into each other, just resting in the same body at the same time. The rest of the night follows what happens when the science stops treating those as opposites and starts treating them as one system. Feel your shoulders. Let them be wherever they are. Let's keep going. Slowly. There is a quiet question beneath a sensitive life. Why was I made to feel so much? Evolution offers a gentle answer. Sensitivity persists across species because, in any group, it helps to have some who notice more, who catch the subtle shift before the others do. You are not an error in the design. You are one of the watchful ones, carrying a role older than language, paying its toll in tiredness. And tonight, the watching can stop, leaving only the depth resting in the dark. It can feel as though you were born already knowing how to feel others. In a sense, you were. Sensitivity is substantially heritable, woven into temperament from the start, visible even in infants who startle more and respond more vividly. This is not something you learned, and so not something you can unlearn. It is closer to the color of your eyes than to a habit. The only real question was ever how to live well inside it. Rest is part of the answer. Think of how the most perceptive people you know often carry a private weariness. There is a reason the two travel together. The same neural depth that produces insight also produces fatigue, because both flow from the same thorough processing. You cannot have the perception without the cost, any more than fire's light without its heat. This is not a tragedy, but the shape of the gift. The perception will still be there in the morning. The weariness will have been carried off in the night. Recall a moment when your sensitivity let you help someone in a way no one else could. Hold that, because it is the other half of the truth your tiredness only half tells. The nervous system that exhausts you is the same one that makes you a careful friend, a person others feel safe beside. The cost and the gift are one system, seen from two sides. This is why the answer was never to dampen the sensitivity. Tonight you are not silencing a flaw. You are restoring a rare instrument. Your strongest reactions almost always come wrapped in meaning. And what moves you is rarely something trivial. This is the deep processing at its most human. A sensitive brain does not merely register events, it searches them for significance. This is why beauty can overwhelm you, and injustice can wound you. Why a piece of music can lodge so deeply. The tiredness, then, is partly the tiredness of meaning-making, the most human work there is. It deserves not apology, but rest. The quiet in which the day's meanings settle into place. Think of how a sensitive child is so often told to toughen up, and how that never quite worked. You cannot toughen a nervous system out of its depth, only teach it to hide the cost. Many sensitive people learn early to mask the tiredness, to perform an ease they do not feel, and the masking is its own quiet drain. By adulthood, the load includes the energy spent concealing it. Tonight, there is no one to perform for, The mask can come off, and the system can simply be tired, which is the first condition of rest. You have perhaps sensed that you recover differently, that you need more downtime, and felt vaguely guilty for it. Let the science set the guilt down. A system that processes more deeply and arouses more strongly requires proportionally more recovery. This is not greed for rest. It is the maintenance schedule of a particular kind of machine. A finely tuned instrument needs more upkeep than a blunt tool. Not because it is weaker, but because it is more precise. There is nothing to feel guilty about in maintaining what makes you good at being you. Recall how often your intuition has proven right. The way you knew something before you could justify it. That intuition is not magic. It is the visible tip of all the subtle processing happening beneath your awareness. Your brain gathers faint signals you never consciously notice and delivers the conclusion as a feeling. And sensitive systems do this more, and more accurately. So the hunches you trust are the harvest of the very depth that tires you. To rest the system is to protect the intuition. Tonight, as it clears, you are tuning the perception you rely on. Think of the relief of being understood, the rare person who simply got it without needing it explained. For many sensitive people, that relief is rare, and the rarity itself adds to the load. Carrying an experience that others minimize is its own slow strain. The strain of translating yourself in a language the world does not quite speak. Part of the healing of this hour is the absence of that strain. Here, in the dark, you do not have to explain the tiredness. Tonight you are with the one witness that never doubted you. You may have noticed that you feel most yourself in quiet, natural places, and that harshness fades fastest there. This is your sensitivity working in your favor. Natural environments offer the kind of gentle, low arousal input that a deep processing system finds restorative rather than depleting. Researchers find measurable drops in stress chemistry after time in such settings, and sensitive people often show the strongest response. The peace you feel by water or under trees is not sentimental. It is physiological recovery. Tonight, even in a familiar room, you can offer your system that same gentleness. Recall a time you pushed through exhaustion because you felt you had no choice, and how the cost arrived later, multiplied. The body keeps that account too. Overriding the signals of a depleted system does not erase the depletion, it defers it, often with interest. For you, whose signals are loud and accurate, the override is especially costly, because you are silencing a finely calibrated warning. Tonight asks for no override. The signal that says rest is the most reliable guide you have, and following it now protects all the days that follow. The ones who feel most deeply are so often the ones who create. This is no coincidence. The depth that gathers residue is the depth that gathers material for creation. Sensitive systems take in the world richly, and richness is the raw stock of everything made with care. This is why protecting your rest is not separate from protecting your gifts. A well that is never refilled runs dry. Tonight's clearing is what keeps the well full. You are not pausing your life to sleep. You are tending its source. You have likely felt that your sensitivity makes ordinary endings harder, that you grieve transitions others move through easily. There is a tenderness in this worth naming. A system that attaches deeply also feels lost deeply. The close of a season, the change in a friendship, the quiet end of a chapter. This is not an overreaction. It is the natural cost of having loved or noticed something fully. To feel endings is to have been truly present for what came before. Tonight, any small ending you carry can be set down while the body holds the weight. Recall the steadiness a calm person can lend a frightened room, and how often that person has been you. Sensitive people frequently become the regulators in their circles, the ones who sense distress early and move to soothe it. This is invisible labor of the highest order, and it draws steadily on your reserves. You have likely done it so long that you no longer notice the cost. Only the tiredness that follows. The depletion was earned through care, not weakness. And tonight, the steadiness you have offered so many others is owed, at last, to you. We now understand what earlier generations could only sense, that feeling deeply and tiring deeply are two faces of a single, coherent system. Its costs and its gifts arise from the same depth of processing, the same fineness of perception. Once you see this, the lifelong project of keeping the gift while shedding the cost reveals itself as impossible, and that impossibility is a relief. You were never failing at a task that could be won. The task was always to rest the whole system well enough to keep carrying both. That is the work the night does. Your worst moments rarely came from one large thing. They came from many small things, with no room to recover between them. This is accumulated load, made personal. It is rarely a single blow that overwhelms such a system. It is the steady arrival of demands faster than the clearing can keep pace. The remedy is not to brace harder. It is to protect the small recoveries, the nights of real rest. So the load never gathers past what a night can clear. Tonight is one of those recoveries. You are not behind. You are where the balancing happens. Being believed can itself feel like medicine. There is a reason. To a social nervous system, recognition reduces threat, and reduced threat lowers the stress response. For sensitive people, whose experience is so often minimized, simply having the load named can begin to settle the body. This entire night has been a kind of naming, a recognition that what you carry is real and worthy of care. You are not exaggerating. You were never the problem. Being seen, even by your own understanding, tells the body it is safe to let go. Will you always be this tired? Is this depletion simply permanent? The new shape of your life, the science says no. The load is dynamic, not fixed. It rises and falls. And the falling is always available, given rest. A nervous system that has run high for years can return toward baseline when recovery is restored. This is not a promise of a life without tiredness, but a promise that the tiredness is not a sentence. It is a tide, and tides turn. You only have to let this one night clear a little more than the day gathered. Recall the difference between being alone and being lonely, and how, for you, solitude often heals, while loneliness wounds. This distinction matters for a sensitive system. Chosen solitude lowers the incoming load and lets the system recover, while loneliness, the absence of felt connection, registers as a stressor in its own right. Tonight, you are alone in the restorative sense, not cut off, but at rest, held by the quiet rather than abandoned to it. The solitude of sleep connects you to nothing but your own repair. There is no loneliness in it. Think of how your body sometimes seems to know what you feel before your mind does. This is interoception, the sense of your own internal state. And it runs richer in sensitive people. The same insula that lets you read others, lets you read yourself, your heartbeat, your breath, the subtle signals of comfort and strain. It can be overwhelming when the signals are loud, but it is also a profound resource, because it means you can feel directly when rest is working right now. If you turn that attention inward, you may notice the breath already slowing. For some, sensitivity deepens with time rather than fading. That is not decline. A nervous system that has spent a lifetime processing deeply becomes, in some ways, more finely attuned. The cost can rise with the attunement, which is why recovery matters more, not less, over a life. The depth is not something you grow out of, it is something you grow further into. And the further in you go, the more the nightly clearing becomes the foundation that makes the depth bearable and even beautiful. Recall the particular peace of a night when you finally stopped fighting sleep and let it take you. That surrender is not defeat. It is the precise act the whole system has been waiting for. Sleep cannot be seized, only allowed. And the allowing is a release of the very vigilance that defines a sensitive day. To let sleep come is to tell the body that the watching can stop, that nothing more needs to be sensed or held. You are moving toward it now, closer with each slow breath. There is nothing left to guard against. Think of how the answer to a long-carried question sometimes arrives not as a thought, but as a softening. We have followed the question of what happens in a sensitive body at the edge of exhaustion all the way down to here. The answer has gathered in just this way. It is a whole understanding settling into place. The cost is real. The clearing is real. And the depth that asks so much of you is the depth that makes you who you are. It arrives as relief, as the loosening you may feel in your chest right now. You have perhaps spent a long time waiting to feel normal, measuring yourself against systems built differently from yours. Here is what the whole arc of this night offers instead. You were never meant to feel like the others. You were meant to feel like yourself, deeply and fully, and at a cost that is simply the price of that depth. The waiting can end, not because you have changed, but because the measure was always wrong. Tonight you are not being repaired into normal. You are being restored into yourself. The question is answered, and it holds steady at the center of the night. Emotional exhaustion in a sensitive person is a real biological event, and sleep is the chemical laboratory where it is neutralized. The load gathers in the blood and brain as measurable wear. The deep stillness of sleep is where the body clears the waste, settles the stress chemistry, and returns the system toward its baseline. This is not metaphor, it is physiology, running in you tonight as it has every night of your life. The remaining stretch carries this answer into a softer key, where only the truth of it remains. Cortisol has a natural flaw. Every night it falls toward it, not because the day earned the rest, not because you asked it to, but because the body runs on a clock far older than any weight you carried today. Right now, without effort, without a single instruction from you, it is falling. The rest of what the night has to say does not need to be understood. It only needs to arrive at the place you are already moving toward. The clearing is already underway. You're nearly there. You were never the problem. You were reading a world that arrives in more detail than most are built to see. Science now calls this depth a trait, not a flaw, found in nearly every species that lives. The watchfulness that tired you was the same watchfulness that kept others safe. Tonight, the reading can stop. The detail can blur and soften at the edges. There is nothing left that needs to be noticed. The heaviness you carried home had a name, and a place, and a way of being carried off. It gathered in the blood, in the spaces between your cells, real and measurable, and now, in the dark. The carrying off has begun. You do not have to help it. The current inside you knows exactly where to take what the day left behind. There is a quiet that comes only when the system stops bracing. Not silence, but a settling. The particular ease a deep processing mind finds when nothing more is arriving to process. You are entering that quiet now. The day's signals have run out of room. What is left is only the slow, even rhythm of a body that has finally been allowed to rest. The clearing inside you runs strongest in the deepest stretches of sleep. You cannot reach them by trying, only by letting go a little more with each breath. So there is nothing to do here but soften and sink and trust the descent. The deeper you drift, the more thoroughly the night does its quiet work. Letting go is the work. Every feeling you held today is being processed, not erased. The body does not throw away what mattered. It files it, settles it, lowers its charge, so that you can carry it tomorrow without its full weight pressing down. This is the gentlest kind of repair. You wake not emptied of what you felt, but eased. The meaning kept and the burden set down. The same depth that made the harsh days so heavy is making this quiet so healing. Your system takes in gentleness at the same high resolution it took in the strain, so the softness of this hour reaches you fully, completely, all the way down. You are not only built to absorb the difficult, you are built just as deeply to absorb the calm that follows it. Notice how the breath has slowed without your asking. The body knows the way toward rest far better than the mind that tries to steer it. You can let the steering go now. There is a rhythm older than thought beneath your breathing, and it is carrying you down. All you do is allow it. The way you allow the tide to move beneath a drifting boat. The vigilance can rest. Nothing in this room needs watching. The signals you spent the day reading have gone quiet, and the instrument that read them is allowed, at last, to set itself down. For these hours, there is no room to scan, no mood to catch, no weight to lift. There is only you, and the dark, and the slow, safe sinking into sleep. You spent so much of yourself feeling alongside others today. Now there is only one nervous system to tend, and it is your own. The calm you so often gave away is yours to keep tonight. Let it move through you the way you sent it moving through so many others. The steadiness comes home now, to the one who has been its quiet source all along. Tomorrow's patience is being made right now, in the dark, while you rest. The kindness you want to offer the world is not a matter of trying harder. It is assembled here, in the clearing and the settling, refilled from a well you do not have to dig. You wake with more to give because the night gave first. Rest is not a pause from your goodness. It is its source. The worry that loomed so large will be smaller by morning, not because the world will have changed, but because the brain regains its sense of proportion in sleep. The alarm quieting, the calm circuits restored. You do not have to solve anything tonight. You only have to rest. And let the system that holds the worry be returned to its right size while you do. There is nothing to finish. The day's work is complete, whether or not it was done perfectly, whether or not the list was emptied. The body does not wait for your approval to begin healing. It begins the moment you stop adding to the load. And you have stopped now. The adding is over. Only the clearing remains. And it asks nothing of you at all. You may have spent years wondering if you were simply too sensitive for this world. The truth is gentler than the question. You were differently calibrated, tuned to a depth the world needs, even when it forgets to thank you for it. There was never anything to fix. There was only a system to rest. And you are resting it now, fully. In the kindest dark, the exhaustion was always real. Science just took a long time to catch up to what your body already knew. You do not have to prove it anymore. Not to anyone. Not even to yourself. The tiredness was earned. The depth was true. And both are being honored now in the only way that ever truly helped. Not with explanation, with rest. So what happens in a sensitive body at the edge of exhaustion? It already has its answer. And the answer is unfolding inside you right now. The blood settles. The brain quietly clears. The chemistry that held you upright all day finally lets you down. Softly, you sink toward the place the body has been moving toward since the moment you first lay still, and let the dark begin to hold you. Let your shoulders be heavy. Let the jaw unclench. Let the breath find the pace it keeps when no one is watching and nothing is required. The body has been holding small tensions all day, each one a tiny act of bracing. They can release now, one by one, like a hand slowly opening that had forgotten it was closed. The current inside you moves whether or not you understand it, washing the day from the spaces between your cells. You do not have to picture it or guide it. It is older than your attention, and it works best when your attention finally lets go. Trust the part of you that has done this every night of your life, faithfully, while you slept and never knew. You are not behind. You are exactly where the balancing happens, where the day's rising meets the night's falling and the ledger gets its chance to even. Each breath now is a small clearing. Each moment of stillness is a deposit against the load. There is no race here. There is only the quiet, even arithmetic of a system being restored. The mask, if you wore one today, is off now. There is no one to perform ease for. No need to seem less tired than you are. You can be exactly as weary as the day made you. And that honesty is the first true condition of rest. The body softens fastest when it no longer has to pretend it is not soft. Whatever small ending the day held, Whatever quiet loss you noticed that others walked past, it can be set down here. To feel endings is only to have been truly present for what came before. The depth that made it heavy is the depth that made it matter. Let it matter, and let it rest, both at once, in the dark. Sleep is not something you seize, it is something you allow. And the allowing is a kind of trust. Trust that nothing more needs to be sensed tonight. Trust that the watching can stop. Trust that the body, left alone in the safe dark, knows the way down better than you ever could. You are not falling asleep. You are letting yourself be carried. The depth is not going anywhere. It will be there in the morning. The perception, the intuition, the careful way you read the world. The night does not take it. The night only clears what gathered around it, so that tomorrow the depth can run clean again. You lose nothing by resting. You protect the very thing that makes you who you are. You feel most yourself in quiet. And this is the quietest place there is. Not loneliness, but solitude of the healing kind, where you are connected to nothing but your own repair. There is no one to read, no room to steady, no signal to catch. There is only the dark, and your own slow breath, and the long, gentle work of being restored. The tiredness is a tide, and tides turn. You do not have to undo a lifetime in a single night. You only have to let this one night clear a little more than the day gathered. That is enough. That is how the baseline settles. Slowly, over many quiet nights like this one, you are already doing the only thing that ever truly helped. You were not too much. You were exactly calibrated for what the day asked of you. And now the day is done. The weight you carried was real, and it is being carried away. There is nothing left to hold, nothing left to notice, nothing left to be. Only this, a sensitive system, deeply tired, deeply worthy, finally allowed to rest. Let it. A nervous system built for depth has been with you this whole hour, reading, processing, feeling everything fully. The sensitivity that emptied you today is the same sensitivity that let you notice this quiet, this softness, this dark. It was never a flaw. It was always a frequency. Let your entire being dissolve into the still water your particular kind of mind has been searching for all day. You were not too much. You were exactly calibrated for what tonight asked of you. What emptied you today was never a fault in how you were made. It was the simple cost of a system that takes the world in more fully than most, and a world that rarely slows down enough to let it recover. That does not make the tiredness smaller, but it changes what the tiredness means. It has a mechanism now, a chemistry, a place inside you where it gathers, and a quiet system built into your nights that carries it away. And a thing with a mechanism is not a thing to be ashamed of. It is a thing that can be worked with, rested through, cleared. You leave tonight knowing what the day actually cost you, and where the body keeps the bill, and how it pays itself back in the dark. Not because tomorrow will ask any less of your depth, but because you will meet it knowing that the heaviness was never proof of weakness. It was only proof of how much you were quietly carrying, all along. But knowing how the body clears the weight of a day is only half of what happens in the dark. There is a deeper question underneath it. If sleep settles the chemistry of what you felt, what does it do to the memory of it? The way the same old moments seem to soften, or sharpen, or quietly rewrite themselves by morning. The next video in the Highly Sensitive People and Sleep playlist begins there. You can let these feelings settle now, like silt drifting down through still water until it finally comes to rest on the bottom and the water above runs clear. Let your body grow heavy with the quiet that comes after being understood. If sleep comes, let it carry you to the place where nothing more is being counted, where the day's ledger closes itself and asks nothing of you at all. If your eyes have already closed, there's nothing left to open them for. Rest well, weary one. You were never too much. You were only carrying more than anyone could see. And now, at last, you can set it down, where the science of the mind becomes the softest place to rest. Good night.